Hello and welcome to my channel. If this is your first time here, welcome to my channel. My name is Gina Jones and this channel is all about fashion. We post videos on how to draft, cut and sew. In today's video, we're going to be learning how to make this beautiful off-shoulder bustier pleated dress. So if that's something you're interested in, please keep on watching. The first step is for you to draft a bustier pattern. If you don't know how to draft a bustier pattern, I made a video where I taught how to draft a bustier pattern. It is up on my channel and I'm going to link the video up. After you have drafted your bustier pattern, you're going to place that pattern on a fresh pattern paper. Pin all the edges and make sure it is well aligned. And then from the waist to the chest line, we are going to transfer the lines onto the new paper, just like you see me doing here. The aim of this is to make sure that we have a pattern paper that is full bustier and the one that is for off shoulder as well, for future reference. So make sure to outline all the lines from the waist to the chest line, making sure that everything is transferred onto the new paper. Using your marker, you're going to outline what you just traced on the new paper, just like you see me doing here. So from the waist to the chest line that you outlined from your old pattern, you're going to transfer everything and it should look like this. The next step is for you to decide where you want your off shoulder to begin. For me, I chose 6.5. So on your old pattern, you're going to measure where your chest started from. For me, my chest started from 5.5 inches from the shoulder line. So I just went down by 1 inch to get my 6.5. Then I ruled out a straight line. So that would be my new chest line. So I went ahead to detach the pattern from the side, and also I cut across the new chest line and the armhole as well. So next, we're going to be cutting out the darts, just like you see me doing here, after which we are going to open up the waist dart up to the bust points. The next thing you need to do is to close up the side darts by securing it with your paper tape or any kind of tape you have. Make sure the papers are not overlapping each other, they should just meet at the center. Using your curved rule, you're going to place it just above the bust line in a way that complements your bust curve already. You see the way I'm placing it now? I just want to extend it towards the chest line from the bust point. First, I'm using my pencil just to outline it and see if the line I marked is okay. Afterwards, I went in with my marker because that will be permanent. So this is the curve I have, and you see that it complements the curve of the bust all the way to the underbust. So before cutting the waist and underbust dart, we're going to cut a fresh piece of paper and place it just under the darts. That is from the bust point down to the waistline. We're going to put a fresh paper just like this, and then we're going to retrace our curve to make sure that the bust curve is well formed. After tracing out your bust curve again, you are then going to cut out your pattern just like you see me doing. You're going to cut out this part you see labeled red, because if you do not, when you are done sewing your dress, the front bodies might not be fitted onto your body, so you have to make sure that you take out that excess at the front. For the center front, we're also going to be attaching a paper underneath it to retrace the bust curve. So just go ahead to do that and then you can cut it out. Moving on to the back pattern, I am going to be using a basic back pattern. If you don't know how to draft a basic back pattern, the video is up on my channel. So on the waistline, you're going to come out by 1/2 inch and then connect it up to the bust line. That 1/2 inch takeout is so to ensure that when you sew in your zipper, there will be no bulge at the back. So you're going to cut out that line from the waist to the bust point and take it out just like that. The next thing that we're going to do is to cut out the pattern. Okay, so I'm going to cut out my pattern very quickly. Please note that when you take out that ½ inch from the center front on your back waistline, you are going to replace it. Let's say originally the measurement on your waist was 8 inches. Now since we have removed ½ inch from the center front, it will now be 8.5. Okay? The next step is from the shoulder line or the shoulder point, I'm going to be coming down by 6.5 inches, which is the point of my off shoulder. So I'm going to draw a straight line. Instead of transferring this pattern onto a fresh one, what I'm going to do is just to flip it or fold the upper part over. Just watch what I'm about to do. So this is what it should look like. The next thing we're going to do now is to cut on the fabric. So I folded my fabric in two. I'm cutting the back pattern first, so you just fold it in two like this with the right side of the fabric facing each other. Then you place it just like this. Don't forget to add your zipper allowance, okay? So you're going to just fold it in, add your zipper allowance and also your side seam allowance. For me, I added 2 inches for my side seam allowance. You can add more or less depending on what you want. Around the armhole, neckline and the waistline, you're going to be adding ½ inch for seam allowance. For this part of the front bodice, I'm going to be adding ½ inch on all the sides except for the side seam where I will be adding 2 inches for ease. Okay, so just watch what I am doing and you would get it. So I've already gone ahead to mark out all the lines and all the measurements, so I'm just cutting it out now. For me, I made the mistake of not removing that extra at the upper part. That part I labeled red before, but I ended up removing it later on. So don't forget or don't make the mistake of not removing yours on time. When I was cutting the other part of the front pattern, which is the center front part, my camera stopped filming, but basically you can see that this is the pattern, and I basically added ½ inch on all sides, and then you're going to cut the fabric on fold, meaning that when you open it, you will not have two pieces, you will have only one piece. So for the back pattern, I've got ahead to place it as well, and like the front, we added ½ inch to the armhole, neckline, waistline, but for the side seam I added 2 inches, and also for the zipper or at the center front I added 1 inch for the zipper. So now I just marked in 1 inch from the armhole side on the chest line for the back. I marked in 1 inch, and I'm going to be using my curved rule to connect it to the armhole again. This is to make sure that the back bodice is fitted on the body when the dress has been sewn. Remember that for the back pattern, the plan was not to cut away from the pattern at all. So what I did was that when I got this my new armhole, I just used like a free hand to transfer that line from the pattern to my fabric. So after I did that, I went ahead to add the ½ inch for seam allowance on my fabric, just like that. All I basically did was just to transfer the new line from pattern to the fabric and then add the ½ inch seam allowance, and then I went to cut on my fabric to remove the excess fabric left. So for the pleated part of the dress, I folded the fabric into 4. I used about 3.5 yards for this part. So I folded the fabric into 4 so I can easily cut through it, and then I used a length of 26, but then I added 1 inch for seam allowance at the hemline and ½ inch for seam allowance at the waistline, which gave us a length of 28.5. So guys, I wanted a full puff sleeve, so the extra fabric I got after cutting my gathers on my pleated part of my gown, I just folded it in two and separated it, meaning that I would be using half of each side for each of the sleeves. So like I said before, I used 3.5 yards for it, so divided by 2, and that would give me about 1/3 of a yard for each sleeve. Okay, so I just did that and then folded it in 2, separated it, folded each of the fabric in 2 again, and then I placed the side seam of the front bodice on the sleeve, and then I marked out the armhole just like you see me doing here. Remember to place it at the open edge of your sleeve, okay? For my sleeve length, I use a length of about 16.5. Remember, you'll be needing 1 inch at the top and 1 inch at the bottom for your elastic fold. So I'm going to be using a soft breast pad for my bustier, and basically I just went ahead to fold it in two and then cut for all the pieces. When cutting your breast pad, make sure to leave ½ inch away from the top and the bottom, so when you are sewing, it will not be bulky. Alright? This particular breast pad I use has gum on one side, so I'm just making sure that the gummy side is on the back of my fabric, okay, so that when I use iron it will stick properly. So I went ahead to cut out the lining for all the pieces. Now let's go into the sewing part. The first thing you're going to do is to get your center front and your side seam pieces. Now you're going to place the center front and the side seam pieces with the right sides facing each other. So you're going to pin this and sew it from top to bottom. Be very careful when you are sewing this so that one does not become longer than the other, okay? So we're going to repeat the same process on the other side. Just pin it and then sew it together. After sewing both sides to your center front, you are then going to place notches on your seam allowance. At this point, the next thing you ought to do is to iron, but I currently live in a place where we've not had light for the past 2 months and I don't have access to charcoal iron. But don't worry, I will be ironing it at the end of the video because one of my school students brought charcoal iron for me. So sweet of him. So if you have irons, go ahead to iron open the seam allowance with using your bust ham, okay, so that your bust does not end up looking flat. For the front lining, we are going to be doing the same thing we did on the front bodies, only that the lining does not have breast pad. For the back bodies, I've gone ahead to transfer my darts from my pattern onto my lining and my fabric, so I'm going to go ahead to sew the darts. Next step is get your front pattern and then place your back pattern on the front pattern with the right sides facing each other. Remember, we used 2 inches for the sewing allowance, which is the ease, so we're going to place it right sides facing each other and then sew with your 2-inch allowance from the armhole to the waistline. You're going to repeat the same process for your lining. Moving on, you're going to grab your sleeve and now we have to create room for the elastic. So at the top, which is where the armhole is at, you're going to fold in with ½ inch and then fold again with enough allowance to accommodate your elastic, okay? So for me, I folded in with ½ inch and then folded with 3/4 inch again, just like you see me doing here. So you're going to move to your sewing machine and then sew on that line. At the bottom of the sleeve as well, we're also going to fold in with ½ inch and then fold again with another 3/4 inch. Then sew. After sewing the top and bottom, we are going to be needing 2 sets of elastic. The first set is the one that will go across the shoulder and the second set are the ones that will be on your bicep, okay? So for the elastics that will go across my shoulder, I measured a total of 10 inches. While for the elastics that will go through my bicep is 12 inches, so I cut elastic of 10 inches. Then you can grab your safety pin and then pass your elastic through it. Make sure not to lose your elastic in this process. So basically, after passing it through, you're then going to secure it with your sewing machine by sewing the edges to make sure that the elastics stay in place. So after sewing the top and bottom, this is what it should look like. So the next thing we're going to do now is to sew the sides of the sleeve together. So basically, fold the sleeve in two and make sure that the right sides of the sleeve are facing each other. So we're going to sew it with ½ inch sewing allowance. Now the next thing we have to do is to join the sleeve to our bodies. So basically, at the armhole, you're going to place the right side of your sleeve facing the right side of your bodies at the armhole, making sure that you leave ½ inch at the top of the back armhole and the front armhole, so you'll be able to turn it with lining. Make sure that the joining lines for the bodies and the sleeves are meeting at the same place. After attaching the sleeves on both armholes, you're going to flip the sleeve over, and now we're going to attach the lining. What you're going to do is that you're going to place the front of your lining to the front of your bodice, okay? So now we can sew round it. But first, listen up. When you are sewing round the neckline in your front and the armhole, when you get to the back, you're going to leave at least 1 inch away from the edge so that we can add our zipper. Okay, so if you do look here now, I've already gone ahead to turn everything out, but at the zipper side I left 1 inch away for our zipper. Okay, so we're going to come back later and then re-sew it. So at this stage, you can go ahead to top stitch on your lining to make it relax at the neckline. So here I've gone ahead to top stitch it, and now the neck is looking relaxed even without ironing it yet. Afterwards, I started ironing. Do you know what? This is actually my first time using a charcoal iron, and I must say the experience was quite stressful. So I was spraying water on the fabric just so to minimize the burn from the charcoal iron because it was hot. So yeah, that was basically it. The next thing to do is to pleat the down part of the dress. So basically, you're going to get that long piece of fabric, and then you're going to knot the middle and also knot the middle of your bodice. Place them with the right sides facing each other, and then we pleat. This is what the dress looks like after I already pleated it. And towards the zipper allowance, I left about 1.5 inches away before I started pleating. This is to reduce the bulk around the zipper area and ensure that it lays flat. So the next thing to do is to create the zipper allowance, after which you go ahead to attach the zip. Make sure to not include the lining on the top part of the bodice when you are adding your zipper. We are going to address that later. After creating the zipper allowance, we are then going to fold the hemline with about 1 inch. So you fold with 1/2 inch once, and then you fold again, then go ahead to sew on it. So this was me before I went on to sew on my zipper. If you notice, I did not include the lining like I said earlier. So place your zipper on your bodice like this, but do not add the lining. We are going to use the lining to close up the rough edges later. After attaching the zipper, this is what it should look like. Now remember that 1 inch we left before where we did not sew on the neckline. Now you're going to turn over your lining, the right sides facing each other like before, and then we're going to complete the neckline. Okay, and after doing that, we are then going to sew on the zipper part of the lining. So after sewing the neckline and the zipper part of my lining, I turn it inside out and then you reveal the knit parts. After which, because my sewing machine is currently not with me in Ondo State where I'm currently serving, I decided to just turn in the lining at the half cut and then pipe it round. So that's how I finished the rough edge. So this is what I have now. This is the finished product, and I really hope that you enjoyed this tutorial. I hope this tutorial was useful and it came in handy. Please subscribe to my channel if you haven't, and turn on post notification bell so you'll be the first to know whenever I upload a new video. It was nice. I really had a nice time making this dress. It came out really beautiful. I got so many compliments about this dress. I will see you in my next video. Bye.